Hello and welcome to another episode of Goa365's Story Behind the Story. I am Glenn Costa and today we are going to be discussing about that rain that has hit Goa and drowned half of Goa, and it has created a lot of inconvenience for people, and it exposed in a way the pre-monsoon planning of the administration. Now, to discuss these issues and to go into details of this, I would like to introduce my panel to you, starting off with Francis Bab Coelho from AAP, Trajan Bab De Mello, TMC National Spokesman, Subhashish Bab Goekar, journalist, and Anish Bab Naik of RGP. Guys, welcome to our show. Francis Bab, start off. What happened? We were hit by rain and then it shifted. Now the monsoons have started, but there was a lot of chaos. People were inconvenienced. Lots of houses were flooded, roads were flooded. So give us a general briefing before we get into the details. Francis Bab.
Thanks, Glenn, for having us here. See, the problem is that when the rains hit, they weren't really unseasonal rains. The monsoons have been showing early onset of monsoons in the last couple of years. So the authorities know that the monsoons are coming earlier and earlier, and climate change is bringing the monsoons earlier. So when the monsoons arrived, there were issues that happened in two fronts. One was man-made disasters that started happening and natural disasters that started happening. Natural disasters were much smaller. If we see the last 10 to 15 days, natural disasters were only some old trees, some trees that have, the roots have gotten rotten. These were the smaller natural disasters. The larger disasters that happened in Goa were man-made disasters, like the landslide in Odshell and the flooding in Mapsa. These were actual man-made disasters that happened. And this has woken up and shaken up the people of Goa as well as the government, because there was a time when only natural disasters used to happen. Natural disasters were the problem, and disaster management and the entire rules and acts of disaster management, and the disaster management has two things. It has the Disaster Management Act of Goa, which is 2007 Act, and it has the Disaster Management Plan of Goa. The Disaster Management Plan of Goa is as new as 2024. Now the Act and the Plan mainly talk about natural disasters, whereas man-made disasters they mention. But what is happening is, because of the government's apathy, there are more man-made disasters happening. Whether it's landslides happening due to hill cutting, whether it's flooding happening due to no proper drain cleanage, no proper desilting of the rivers, no proper garbage and waste management. This is all being caused and thus leading to these man-made disasters. And the lack of the government response. See, if you look at disaster management, the government's thing is, one is prevention and mitigation. They have to prevent and mitigate these risks. Second thing is response when it happens. And the third thing is recovery and rehabilitation. They have not done any of these things. Like, for example, the risk assessment and checking out of, vulnerabilities. For example, that Madgaon building that fell on so many cars. Thankfully, nobody was injured, but people could have died over there. They have been having a list of buildings that are, in a dilapidated condition for now 5 years. What have they done about that list? No action was taken. Somebody goes and tells somebody calls up the chief minister, somebody calls up the Margaon MLA, somebody calls up somebody, and then no action is taken on the building owners, no action is taken on the buildings, and it just waits. So prevention is zero. Same thing with hill cutting that is happening everywhere. They cut the hill, they leave the loose soil on the hill, nobody bothers. So prevention in this case of the Disaster Management Act, their prevention is zero. Response also. When that happens, the response that happens, like we saw in the Odshell case, the deputy collector himself came over there in the night, in the evening at about 7:30, and he had the audacity to say, tomorrow morning I will do this and tomorrow morning you will do that. He's a disaster management authority. His training says that when you get a call, you're supposed to act immediately, because if there is impending danger, you're supposed to act immediately. He had the audacity to say, file move note. So the government is completely in a mess as far as disaster is concerned.
Blank, you mean to say?
Yeah, the disaster management is a complete disaster.
This I need to discuss little further, because I'll tell you why also. Trajan Bab, Bardez was hit pretty badly. So why you think? Because it rains every year in Goa. This is something that I've been saying regularly. अरे पाऊस तो येतात गोंयान पाऊस ना म्हणून कोणे आयकला. So every year it rains. So every year, I mean, like when it doesn't rain, we should be doing something. But still, your Mapsa was flooded. What was Mapsa? It was a swimming pool, yeah. Porvorim was another, I don't know what. Giri biri tumchi sheta meta, I don't know. Rajan Bab, I don't know.
By
You tell.
focusing on Bardej,
Because you are from there. I know you are also the national spokesman. Okay, also I would like to tell you, Bombay was flooded.
Coming.
Delhi was flooded. Okay, fine. If you want me to widen the thing.
Not widen. You are narrowing it to so this. As if it happened in Bardej only.
Okay.
The question is, it has happened throughout Goa.
Okay.
Now, this government, as explained by Bob Francis, hill cutting, this cutting, that cutting, has first created the disaster. And the so-called disaster management, what the government was tom-tomming that is in place, could not manage the disaster. Because so many people got affected. You see, why is this happening? Because they say development. In the name of development, we have ruined small water ponds. We have allowed buildings to come there. Where will the water accumulate? The hills are cut, as he said. Where will the water go? This is going to be a lifetime event now. And it is going worse. Government doesn't seem to understand what it has been, the disaster it has done, because they are so involved in the greed. The greed is killing Goa. You are killing the hen that lays the egg. And that is what has happened. In all respects, but let us stick to the disaster that has happened now.
Yes.
Now we talk of double engine Sarkar. What happened in Bombay? In metro that was just inaugurated. It is flooded and nobody can go there. You go to Delhi, same thing.
The airport.
So where is that? What is this double engine Sarkar? So it is a very clear signal that they are not in a position to develop our country, our state, especially let's come back to Goa, without creating this chaos which every Goan is getting into. Take the Panjim, smart city.
No, Panjim was actually the best, surprisingly, compared to the rest of the
It was.
Actually,
Yes,
was the
it was,
best.
but-
For once, normally it used to be the worst.
But
I don't know if it is due to Rohit or whatever. But
how
still-
long the people have suffered in Panjim.
Yeah, and still suffering.
And then you are trying to say it is the best. The worst
Comparatively.
situation, worst situation, the best. Okay, let's accept that. Now that, see, this, I tell you that rains, as he said, natural disaster. God had protected Goa with the worst of storms and to protect all disasters. But the way these people have ruined it, I tell you, in future it's going to be still worse.
Okay, thanks, Trajan Bab. Now, one thing also, now you're talking about eggs and all. We are all supposed to become vegetarian now. So the eggs, they kill the chicken or they काय फरक पडतो ना मध्ये. I mean, Subhashish Pawar, tell us now. We've been like this is a little got a little political. General overall, you've been covering you and your reporters have been covering the state. So what exactly we went through, because it was like such a blur. One day suddenly heavy rain, this side flood, that side flood, this news, that news, here, war. So what exactly did we go through in the past 10 to 12 days or whatever?
I mean, like it's as usual, like the authorities, they wait usually for the last minute. Like now everyone knows monsoon is coming, so you know that you have to prepare for it. But they will start only preparing like 10, 15 days before the monsoons is going to come. And that is not enough when you're trying to tackle an entire 3-4 months of heavy sustained rains. Now, ironically, a tree right outside the collector's office crashed down on 7 bikes. The one who is supposed to be in charge for disaster management in an entire district. So when you have incidents like this, when trees are supposed to be identified, they were identified. The work was going on in Panjim. A lot of trees were being trimmed and being safeguarded and stuff like that. But the fact that they start the work so late and then they say that no, rains came early this time, we didn't expect rains to come so early. Then what was IMD doing? Okay, IMD gave you the warning. Now IMD also is in a little bit of a, crosshairs, because they are sometimes not accurate, sometimes they are. But again, monsoons is something everyone knows comes after 20th, you know you can expect rains in Goa. It's either pre-monsoon or it is monsoon itself. Now again the highways that have been built in the state, a lot of landslides have been noticed along these highways. The way they have been just cut, there's no protection, no proper retaining walls. I mean, there was this incident in Penne where we filed a story from, where the retaining wall was just this thick. And now if you expect a retaining wall that is this thick to stop an entire mountain from sliding down, I don't know what was the thought process behind that, the logic. Even the holes, now they're supposed to make holes in those retaining walls so that the water passes through so it does not waterlog and pressure all come at once. Even those holes were not even like kept properly, they were just made for namesakes, just so that it looks like there are holes on it. So when you have such instances of like, clear cost cutting or whatever it may be, you are bound to have incidents. Like entire Penne stretch of highway was cut off for like so many days. Then you also had the Sada highway, which is repeatedly facing landslides. One section of the lane has been shut now for years now. Only one side of the lane is being used. And then you also have like the Verna to Lutle Bori highway. There also we've had landslides. Kortalim we've had landslides. We have, luckily there have not been like fatalities, but a lot of loss of property and injuries that have happened.
Swachis, I need to interrupt you. We have to go in for a short break. Keep watching. Welcome back. Yeah, Subhashish.
Yeah, so like I was saying, it is a clear lacking of the prevention part of the disaster management. Now, usually when the disaster does happen, then it is like, the fire brigades will be scrambled and then there will be a whole this where like,
We'll discuss that. We'll discuss that a little later because that I want to discuss in thing. Yeah, Anish Bab, what is it? Bicholi was first hit. The first videos and the first visuals and the first reports came from Bicholi because it was like underwater, so many parts of it. What happened? Exactly? Kida आले थे Bicholi? सांगा मग तुम्ही. And Mapsa, Bicholi and Mapsa, I think went really. I don't know what happened literally.
The technical things and the act already explained केले असं the panelist. I'll just go into the details what happened on field that day. As you mentioned in Bicholi or in Mapsa, especially if you take the example of Mapsa from past so many years this issue is going on.
Yes.
आता especially the video एक viral झालो from Kollim where the bike along with the rider he swept away. आणि ते जंक्शन अशें आसा की every year थंय सेम प्रॉब्लम आसा. बट नेक्स्ट डे वॉट म्हणजे एक सरप्रायझिंगली जेन्ना नेक्स्ट डे द म्हापसा MLA अलॉंग विथ द लोकल कावन्सिलर जेन्ना त्या जाग्यार येयलो इन्स्पेक्शन करपाक ऑर टू ते क्लीन करपाक येयलो थंय तो तेन्ना the media questioned him regarding the flood जाले ताका लागून and on record the Mapsa MLA said that in his last 6 years अशें तेणी केन्ना पळोवंकूच ना खंय म्हापसान. दिस इज द फर्स्ट टायम म्हणपाक लागलो तो. आणि गोईंग अहेड आनीक तेणी एक शॉकिंग स्टेटमेंट आनी एक जोक काय कितें तेणी केलो खबर ना. तो एक्चुअली तेजर वे ही रिजायड्स सारको टॉपर रावता म्हापसाच्या. वे कॅन सी द एंटायर म्हापसा आनी तेजो तो फुकटवाडी जेणी केला एवरीथींग यू कॅन सी फ्रॉम देर. तो सांगता जेन्ना असो व्हडलो पावस येता जावं अशें फ्लड येता तेन्ना आपल्या घरा कडेन येता म्हणटा उदक. तो
कशें
म्हणजे वॉट डज दीस मीन म्हणजे लोकांनी कंप्लेंट करपाची ना काय कितें. म्हणजे जेन्ना मिडियान ताका विचारलें अशें की म्हापसा फ्लड जाला कितें तो म्हणटा व्हडलो पावस येयलो काय वी कांट मॅनेज इट म्हणटा आपल्या घरा सुद्दां येता उदक म्हणटा तो. सो दीस वॉज हिज स्टेटमेंट ऑन रेकॉर्ड. सो हेच्या वयल्यान जो MLA इफ ही कांट सेफगार्ड हिज ओन हाऊस and we are expecting him to save the entire constituency being he is in the ruling, he is the deputy speaker. तरी तो आता तो such a irresponsible statement करता तो. आणि when आणि just day before when the floods were going on तो especially एक घरान जे आमचे खोल्लेचो तो एक व्हिडिओ आयलो मिस्टर केरकर he is 80 year old a senior citizen आणि when he gave the bite and he clearly told the media that तेंचे जे गव्हर्मेंटान जे एक 4-5 दीस पयलीं CMांची मिटींग एक दवरलेली रिगार्डिंग द डिजास्टर मॅनेजमेंट अलॉंग विथ द म्युनिसिपालिटीज पंचायत आनी तेंचे थोडे नंबर्स आउट केल्ले. तेंच्यांनी सगळे नंबर्स आउट कॉल करपाक ट्राय केलो टू सो दॅट द ऑथॉरिटीज कॅन रीच आउट देर. बट कोणूच येवंक ना थंय. नो ऑथॉरिटीज रीच देर. कोणूच येवंक ना थंय. एंड फायनली तेंच्यांनी मॅन्युअली आपूण ते काडले उदक थंय. आनी दीस इज लायव्ह ऑन मिडिया. ती इतकी आसून सुद्दां ते कोण पावना. सो दीस शोज हे आयज आमी खंय पावला ते. सो आणि एक सांगपाक सोदता जस्ट आय लायक टू एड ऑन the ex-CP, the chairperson of MAPSA and a tall BJP leader from MAPSA, he himself made a statement that the governance in MAPSA is Ram Bharose म्हणून. So आता he himself is saying तो सांगता राम भरोसे चालला व MLA सांगता हे फर्स्ट टाइम जाला. सो तो घरातलो भायरूच सरना काय खंय आसता वी डोंट नो. हां तेचो तो आणि द अफेक्टेड पीपल जी 5-6 घरां तांकां जेन्ना मिडियान क्वेश्चन केलो दे आर सेइंग दॅट दे आर फेसिंग दीस एवरी इयर. देर इज नथिंग न्यू इन दीस म्हणून एवरी इयर अशेंच जाता. येता मागीर कोण येता थंय MLA येता जावं द लोकल कावन्सिलर येता आनी दीस इज जस्ट द ब्लेम गेम गोईंग ऑन. कावन्सिलर सांगता बिंग इन द ऑपोजिशन आपले थंय कामां जायना म्हणून. MLA सांगता कांय नात म्हणून प्रॉब्लम. मागीर मिडिया जेन्ना चेअरपर्सनाक क्वेश्चन केलो ती सांगता तशें कांय ना म्हापसान व्हडलेशें कांय हें ना म्हणटा इशू ते. सो हेंचे ब्लेम गेमीन हेंची गव्हर्नन्स फेल जाता आनी अफेक्ट जाता तो आमचो लोकल गोवन. सो हे लोकांनी मातशे विचार करपाक जाय. आणि खुबशे हांवें इवन स्टेटमेंट्स ऐकले दॅट सेईंग दॅट द डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट इट सेल्फ इज अ डिझास्टर. आय वूड गो वन स्टेप अहेड अँड आय से दीस गव्हर्नमेंट इट सेल्फ इज अ डिझास्टर. तूं खंयच्या फिल्डान वचत मागीर करप्शनान आसूं आमचे लँड फिलिंग लँड एवरीथींग.
ओके वी विल डिस्कस दॅट लिटल लेटर. ती करप्शनाचेर ते खूब डिस्कशन करूंक जाता. फ्रांसीस बाब तुम्ही म्हणटाले नाव अनिश बाब म्हणटालो अबाउट दॅट खोर्लीन जंक्शन अँड दॅट वेर वॉटर गोईंग अँड यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट स्पेसिफिकली ऑडशेलान. सो वॉट इज द सीन नाव? What is the scene? Because did you all try to call up the disaster management phones? So many phones. We also ran these posts and all that. What is the scene? Was it the response was okay? I'm asking for a specific reason. This particular.
The response was not at all
Fire
okay.
brigade when you all called, it didn't come.
No. See, the fire brigade is the only department in Goa that I feel is extremely prompt. They do a fabulous job, and they were there. The fire brigade comes whether the disaster management comes or does not come. Fire brigade comes, does not wait for anything, and they start acting on this. But fire brigade cannot empty an entire hill filled with mud.
No.
The fire brigade can, like, do some little bit of, like, they started, for example, in Odshell, there was a pump over there. There was a pit filled with water, 40 foot deep. Akke deni ek construction korpak fond malna dinga. Te fondan udak bollele. Fire brigade can start pumping out that water immediately so that does not collapse and crash onto the houses. But let me just tell you how our BJP government is messing the disaster management up. First of all, the disaster management head does not have a single authority. It has some IAS officer who has got multiple charges.
Collector.
Either collector or the chief secretary. One of the
collector. Disaster management head is
collector.
collector.
That is not Goa. The state disaster management authority is the chief secretary. Right? Chief secretary has got multiple charges. The disaster management needs a competent technocrat who understands the technicalities of disaster management and who's there at a full-time post, at least one full-time person. बाकीचे सगळे घेतात ते North Goa Collectorate and South Goa Collectorate and सगळे त्यांना बाकीची कामां आहा. They are hearing cases also, they are going for election duty also. Disaster जाले जाल्यार सगळे सोडून थिंगा पावपाचे. So first of all, the disaster management does not have any people. Secondly, let me just tell you how the government uses the disaster management. There was a case in 2021. At that time, Jennifer Montserrat was the revenue minister. Okay, she was the dummy revenue minister, we called her, because the original revenue minister in the background was Mr. Babush Montserrat. There was a case where Shyam Sundar Kamath had put a case in the Bombay High Court, where he had said that the North Goa collector, under the influence of Jennifer Montserrat, who was revenue minister, had misused the Disaster Management Act. They had used the Disaster Management Act to say that, a road should pass through his petrol pump in Old Goa. On the Panjim Old Goa road, he has a petrol pump. The petrol pump bandlane ek rasta hoita. These people had misused the Disaster Management Act. The judge, there was a two-bench judge, Dipankar Datta and Mahesh Sonak were the two-bench judge. They had told the North Goa collector that, what you have done is completely illegal, ultra vires, and completely null and void. Right? And in fact, they had legal malified intentions, where they have used the law mistakenly to this. So rather than use the Disaster Management Act to prevent disasters and to when a disaster happens to do something, our MLAs from the ruling party and our ministers use the Disaster Management Act to do this kind of nonsense.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Franz Bab. Rajan Bab, you have anything to add to the chaos that we saw in Goa?
We have spoken about the chaos happening on the ground.
Yes.
Please visit the MAPSA government office.
Yes, we have, and we filed the story. Yes, Rajan Baba.
And they are working with umbrellas and raincoats.
Good, no? Why they want
Plus
to join
all the computers are covered up with tarpaulin.
Tarpaulin.
Yeah, they're okay. They can't function with the carpet. I don't know what is happening to the files. How many files will get destroyed in that nonsense? You try to start any electrical gadget, they're getting shocks. Now this is what we all spoke is on the road. The government cannot manage its own offices. If this is the state of the government staff working inside the offices, what are we looking at? What is happening on the road? This is what I am adding to the whole scenario. Therefore, this government has totally, as I told you, they create the disaster, and the disaster management team cannot control the disaster. That's a bigger disaster. The team is a bigger disaster. As explained, they are not picking up the phones. When they come, they फाल्या कोत्तेले. आता आमच्याकडे equipment ना. आम्ही आता किती करू शकता? What? This is the way. What is the disaster management? You are only working to create a disaster. Nothing else.
And more than that, they are not involving the people who are actually, who should be a part of that. The civil society is not being involved in the disaster management. They sit, they have their meetings in their AC cabins. What they do, they pass their butter biscuits and all. Okay, one, then we get up, we did this. On ground, nothing, because the people themselves don't know what's going on.
They cannot get the civil society involved. Civil society is fed up with this government.
No, it's
But
mandated.
They are talking one thing and they are doing another thing.
It's mandated. Anyway, we are out of time on this episode. Now, this is something that we have seen in this thing. It is chaos. You will see the visuals which are running along with the people talking. It was a complete chaos, and the monsoons have started on 25th. This was a week, 10 days before this. It was complete chaos. Now we are talking about being the 4th largest economy in the world, right? We are. Indians are very good businessmen. Indians are very good technocrats. Silicon Valley runs on Indians. Top CEOs, your Google wala, or so many CEOs are Indians. And can we not sort out a little bit of flooding in Bombay and Delhi and Goa? I don't know. To discuss this, stay with us when we come back for the second episode. Keep watching.